The distress beacon had been screaming for 11 minutes before Lieutenant Cole Archer punched through the debris field and found the ship. It was not a human ship. The hull was alive, literally alive. Grown from something biological, its surface pulsing with faint amber light the way a jellyfish pulses in deep water. Chunks of it were missing. Whatever had hit it hard. And whatever had hit it was still close, because Cole's threat board lit up with 4 contacts the moment he dropped out of warp. He did not think about it. He just started shooting. The contacts were pirates, the kind that operated in the outer fringe where galactic law was a theory and human patrols were rare. They scattered the way bullies always scatter when someone hits back harder than expected. 2 of them jumped to warp immediately. The third tried to angle for a run, and Cole put a rail slug through its engine block. The fourth came straight at him like it was angry about the whole thing, and he hit it twice before it stopped being a problem. Silence. The distress beacon kept screaming. Cole pulled alongside the alien vessel, matched its slow tumble, and opened a comm channel. Nothing came back but static and the sound of something structural groaning. He suited up in under 4 minutes. His personal record was 3:42, but he had fumbled the left glove and crossed the gap on a tether. The airlock was biological too. It read him somehow, tasted the atmosphere around his suit, and decided he was probably not a threat. It opened. Inside, the ship smelled like rain and copper, and something else he could not name. Something that made the back of his jaw ache the way it did before a thunderstorm. The corridor lights were failing, cycling between amber and deep red. And the gravity was maybe 60% of standard, which meant every step floated him a little too long before his boots came back down. He found her in the command chamber. She was tall, taller than him by nearly a head, which put her close to 2 meters. And her skin was the color of deep water on an overcast day, a blue so dark it was almost violet. Her hair was white. Not aged white, but actual white like fresh snow, and it floated around her in the partial gravity like something alive. She was wearing armor that had seen better days. One pauldron cracked clean through, a deep gash along her ribs that was not bleeding the way a human would bleed. Her blood was gold, and it moved slowly, like it was reluctant to leave her. She was conscious, barely. Her eyes opened when he stepped into the chamber, and they were amber, almost exactly the same color as the ship's exterior light. And they focused on him with the specific sharpness of someone who is running on pain and will and not much else. She said something in a language he did not have. He said, "I'm going to help you. Just stay still." She said something else. It sounded like a warning. The ship groaned again, louder this time. Cole had a field medkit rated for human physiology and absolutely nothing else. He looked at the gash in her side, looked at the gold blood that was not stopping, looked at the kit, and made a series of decisions that his commanding officer would later describe as either brilliantly creative or profoundly reckless, depending on which part of the after-action report she was reading. He used the sealant foam. It was designed for hull breaches, not wound care. But it stopped the bleeding, and sometimes stopping the bleeding is the entire game. She grabbed his wrist the moment the foam touched her. Her grip was extraordinary. He felt the bones in his forearms shift and remind him they were there. "I know," he said. "I know it hurts. Keep breathing." She did not let go of his wrist. He worked around her grip. The ship had maybe 20 minutes before the structural damage cascaded into something irreversible. So he got her moving. She could walk, barely, leaning on him with one arm around his shoulders. Her head lowered, that white hair falling forward over her face. She was heavier than she looked. Her bones, he would later learn, were denser than human bones by about 40%, an evolutionary adaptation for high-gravity homeworlds. At the time, he just thought she was impressively solid for someone who was half unconscious. He got her across the tether with 2 minutes to spare, which required a level of improvisation he was not going to put in the report in any detail. Once she was inside his ship, he sealed the airlock, cut the tether, and put distance between himself and the alien vessel before it finally gave up and began to break apart. He set course for the nearest station, a human outpost called Relay 7, 3 hours at standard warp, and went to check on his passenger. She had found the crew cabin on her own. She was sitting on the bunk with her back against the wall and her knees pulled up, taking inventory of herself with the focused calm of someone who had been hurt before and knew the protocol. Her eyes tracked him the moment he appeared in the doorway. He held up both hands, empty. Universal gesture. She looked at his hands, then at his face, then at the patch on his shoulder that read, Earth Colonial Fleet. And something shifted in her expression. Not quite recognition, not quite relief, something between them. She pressed one long-fingered hand flat against her chest and said something slow and deliberate. A name. An introduction. He pointed at himself. Cole Archer. She repeated it, not perfectly. The vowels came out slightly elongated. But she repeated it. These, he got her water and a nutrient pack that she regarded with the deep suspicion of someone who has never seen a foil pouch before in her life. He demonstrated by drinking from one himself. She watched him for 30 seconds to make sure he did not fall over, then tried it. She made a face. He laughed before he could stop himself. She looked at him, this alien noblewoman with gold blood and amber eyes, who outranked him in every conceivable galactic hierarchy, sitting on his crew bunk making a face at a nutrient pouch. And something happened in her expression that might have been the alien equivalent of a smile. 3 hours felt a lot shorter than it should have. At Relay 7, she communicated enough through gestures and a basic translation matrix the station had on file to convey that she was Vethara, second daughter of the Noric Imperial House, and that she needed a secure channel to her homeworld. The station commander went pale. The Noric Imperial House was not the kind of family you accidentally rescued people from. They were the kind of family that started wars when they felt like it and ended them when they were bored. They were old power, the kind that predated the Galactic Council by 600 years. Cole stood next to her at the comm terminal while she made her call and thought about how 11 minutes ago, or 3 hours and 11 minutes ago, he had just been answering a distress beacon. The call connected. The face on the screen was older than Vethara, the same dark blue-violet skin, the same white hair, but with the specific stillness of someone who has never once in her life been told no. She looked at her daughter, and then she looked at Cole, and then she looked at her daughter again. Vethara said something long and detailed. The older woman's amber eyes moved back to Cole. Her expression did not change, but something behind it did. Human, she said, in perfect galactic standard. You have my gratitude. Cole nodded. We will speak again, she said. The channel closed. Vethara turned to him and said something that the translation matrix rendered as, You have complicated my life significantly. He was not sure if that was good or bad. It was, as it turned out, only the beginning. The Noric diplomatic vessel arrived at Relay 7 14 hours later. It was the size of a small moon. Not literally, but the kind of ship that makes a station's structural integrity sensors perform a full diagnostic just from the proximity. The kind that blots out the star behind it and makes everyone in the observation deck go very quiet. It was the same biological hull design as Vethara's destroyed ship. But where hers had been a personal cruiser, this was something else entirely. Layered, armored, grown over centuries into something that looked more like a living fortress than a vehicle. Cole watched it dock from the station commander's office, standing next to a man who was visibly considering retirement. Vethara stood on his other side. The station medics had properly treated her wounds by then, with a Noric physician who had arrived via shuttle 3 hours ahead of the main ship and spent 40 minutes removing his sealant foam with the careful expression of someone who did not want to say what they were thinking. The gash in her side was closed now, the gold-tinted skin over it new and slightly luminous, the way scar tissue is when it's fresh. She stood straight. The barely alive woman from the crew bunk was gone. This was something else. Head up, shoulders back, the specific posture of someone who was born knowing they would be watched. She had not looked at Cole with that posture yet. She looked at it now, briefly, sideways. Like she caught herself doing it and filed it away. The diplomatic team that came aboard was 16 people in formal armor, which in Noric culture apparently meant armor that was decorative but still functionally capable of stopping a plasma bolt, which Cole found extremely on brand. They surrounded Vethara and did a health assessment in under 2 minutes without ever making it look like an assessment. Then the senior diplomat, a narrow-faced male with silver hardware threaded through his white hair, turned to Cole. "Lieutenant Archer," he said, "the House requests your presence aboard the vessel." Not an invitation, a request that was shaped exactly like a command. The station commander made a small noise. Cole said, "All right." Vethara said something to the diplomat in Noric. Sharp, 1 sentence. The diplomat's expression did not change, but he angled his body slightly away from her, which Cole recognized as the posture of a man who had just been reminded of something he would prefer to forget. Aboard the diplomatic vessel, Cole was given quarters that were better than anything he had ever slept in, including the apartment he'd grown up in. The bed was biological material. Everything was biological material. The Noric built almost nothing from metal, and it adapted to his body temperature within minutes of him sitting on it. The walls glowed softly. There was a window the size of a wall that looked out at the stars. A different attendant came every few hours with food. Some of it was identifiable. Some of it was not. All of it was extraordinary. Nobody told him where they were going. On the 3rd day, Vethara came to his quarters without announcement. She had exchanged the damaged armor for formal clothing, layered fabric in dark colors with gold at the collar and cuffs, and her white hair was arranged in a way that had clearly taken significant effort. She looked at him for a moment and then sat down in the chair across from the room's low table, as if she had done it before. As if this was an established pattern between them, rather than the 3rd real conversation they had ever had. The translation matrix on his comm unit had improved significantly. The ship's system had fed it a full Noric language file overnight without being asked, which said something either about Noric hospitality or Noric surveillance, probably both. "You are not afraid," she said. "Of what specifically?" She gestured at the ship around them. "The house, the situation." "Being afraid wouldn't help," he said. She looked at him the way she had looked at the nutrient pouch, assessing, uncertain, arriving at a conclusion she had not expected. Humans are strange. We get that a lot. "My mother wants to meet you formally," she said. "Tomorrow. It will be a full court audience. There will be a great many people in the room whose entire purpose is to determine whether you are a threat to this house." "Am I?" "No." she said without hesitation, which surprised him. You sound sure. I read your file, she said. The station had it. I asked for it. She said it plainly, no apology. You have been reprimanded 4 times for operating outside your orders. You have been commended 9 times for the results of doing so. You have no political affiliation within human space. You have no family with imperial ambitions. She paused. You also apparently once spent 3 days talking a rival crew down from a standoff using nothing but a card game and protein rations. They were really hungry, Cole said. Something moved in her expression. It was not quite a smile, but it was in the same family. My mother will like you, Vethara said. That is more complicated than it sounds. She left before he could ask her what she meant. The court audience the next day was exactly as overwhelming as advertised. The chamber was enormous, grown from the same living material as the rest of the ship, but here reaching upward into vaulted ceilings where bioluminescent panels shifted slowly through the amber gold spectrum. There were maybe 200 Noric assembled, all in formal wear, and all with the specific stillness of people who were very good at being observed. At the far end of the chamber, on a raised platform, was the Empress. She looked identical to the face on the comm screen, which meant she looked like Vethara would look in 30 years. The same bone structure, the same quality of absolute attention. She was flanked by an honor guard of 8 warriors in full armor, and she was wearing more gold thread than Cole had seen in one place in his entire life, and none of it looked like decoration. He walked the length of that chamber alone. He had been given a briefing on the appropriate forms of address. He had been given a translation earpiece. He had been told 3 separate times not to make direct eye contact for more than 4 seconds. He made direct eye contact. He could not help it. She had the same amber eyes as her daughter. There was a ripple through the assembled court. The Empress looked at him for 10 full seconds. Nobody in the room appeared to breathe. Lieutenant Cole Archer, she said in Galactic standard again, precise and deliberate. You saved my daughter's life. She was in danger, he said. It was the right thing to do. Another ripple. Apparently this was not the standard answer. Apparently the standard answer involved more formal acknowledgement of the house's greatness and his own unworthiness. The Empress's expression moved in exactly the way Vethara's had, when he had laughed at her nutrient pouch face. Something behind the stillness, considering him. Sit, she said. An attendant materialized a chair, in the middle of the formal court chamber. For him. He sat. She asked him questions for 2 hours. Not about the rescue. She moved past that in the first 10 minutes. She asked him about human space, human politics, the structure of the colonial fleet, what he believed about the Galactic Council, what he thought about the Fringe Wars, what he ate for breakfast. The last question she asked was what he intended to do next. Go back to my patrol route, he said. Unless someone tells me differently. Someone will tell you differently, she said. The audience ended. Vethara was waiting for him in the corridor outside. You lasted longer than any non-Noric has lasted in a formal audience, she said. How long do they usually last? 40 minutes before the anxiety becomes visible. She fell into step beside him. None of you were either very calm or very good at pretending. Little of both, Cole admitted. She was quiet for 3 steps. My mother has given you a title, she said. Honorary, but real. It means something close to friend of the house. It carries certain protections, certain obligations. What obligations? Vethara looked at him sideways again, that same considering look from his quarters. You will find out, she said, and turned down a different corridor before he could follow up. That night, the ship's navigation system, which he had quietly been tracking on his comm unit, completed a course correction. They were not going to Noric Prime. They were going somewhere else entirely, deep into Noric space, to a world he did not have on any human chart. He sent a situation report to Fleet Command, flagged it Priority 2, and then went to sleep in the extraordinary biological bed. Whatever was coming, he would handle it when it arrived. He was very good at that. The world was called Velorath, and it was not on any human chart because the Noric had never shared it with anyone. Cole understood why the moment the ship descended through the atmosphere and the view through his cabin window shifted from cloud cover to landscape. Velorath was a garden world in the truest sense, not cultivated gardens, but the raw, overwhelming kind. Forests so dense the canopy looked solid from altitude, rivers that ran colors human rivers did not run, mountains whose upper slopes were wrapped in something luminous that was not quite fog and not quite cloud. It was the most alive place he had ever seen, that made the best terraformed human colony worlds look like sketches of an idea. The estate sat on a plateau above a river valley. Estate was the wrong word. It was a compound built from the same grown architecture as the ships, enormous and layered and clearly old. Centuries of additions integrated so smoothly into the original structure that it was impossible to tell where one generation ended and the next began. Vethara appeared in his doorway as the ship landed. She was in different clothing again, less formal, more practical, colors darker. She looked at him, and he looked at her, and for a moment neither of them said anything. "Welcome to Velorath," she said. "My family's private world." "Private world," he repeated. "We own it," she said simply. "Omkar, we have for 400 years. He thought about the scale of that, and then stopped thinking about it because it was the kind of thought that had no useful bottom. The Empress met them in the estate's central hall. No court, no audience, no 200 pairs of eyes. Just her. 2 personal guards who stood far enough back to signal they were not participating in the conversation. And a low table with food and the kind of tea-adjacent beverage the Noric drank in the mornings. She was wearing no gold thread. She looked, for the first time, like a person rather than an institution. "Sit," she said, and this time it sounded like hospitality. Cole sat. Vethara sat across from him. The Empress sat at the head of the low table and poured the tea herself, which apparently meant something in Noric social code because both the distant guards went very slightly straighter. "I am going to tell you something directly," the Empress said, "because I have found that humans respond better to directness than to the forms of approach my court would use." "Appreciated," Cole said. "My daughter's bond status changed when you pulled her from that ship," she said. He looked at Vethara. Vethara was looking at her tea. "I don't know what that means," Cole said carefully. "In Noric biology," the Empress said, with the specific tone of someone who has rehearsed how to explain something, "there is a mechanism, ancient. It predates our civilization. When a Noric is at the edge of death and another being intervenes, specifically, when there is extended physical contact during the intervention, certain biological processes activate that would not otherwise activate." Cole's understanding of where this conversation was going arrived approximately 3 words ahead of the Empress finishing her sentence. He kept his face neutral. He was very good at keeping his face neutral. "Vethara is pregnant," the Empress said. The room was very quiet. "The Noric word for it translates roughly as life claim," she continued. "It is not common. It requires a specific conjunction of circumstances. It has not occurred across species before, to our knowledge. Our physicians have been running assessments for the past 2 days. She paused. The child is healthy. Both of them are healthy. Cole looked at Vethara again. Vethara raised her eyes from her tea. Her expression was not embarrassed. The Noric did not have the same relationship with that particular emotion. But it was something equally complicated. It was the expression of someone who had information she did not know how to carry, and had been carrying it alone for several days already. "You were going to tell me," he said. "I was trying to decide how," she said. "This is not your fault," the Empress said to Cole, directly and without the quality of reassurance. More the quality of a legal clarification. The mechanism is biological and involuntary. Neither of you chose it, however. She set down her tea. "It has consequences." "I imagine it does," Cole said. "Under Noric law, the individual responsible for the life claim, the one whose intervention triggered the mechanism, has legal standing in the child's life. But this is not optional. It is structural." She looked at him steadily. "This means you have rights in this house that cannot be revoked. It also means you have responsibilities in this house that cannot be declined." Cole thought about his patrol route, his bunk on his small ship, the card game that had ended a standoff, the 11 minutes of distress beacons screaming before he punched through a debris field. "All right," he said. The Empress paused. "That is your response." "What response were you expecting?" "Argument, denial, negotiation, demands for human legal review." She looked at him the way Vethara had looked at him multiple times by now, that specific Noric assessment that he was starting to recognize. Possibly fainting. "I don't faint," Cole said. Vethara made a sound that was, without any question, or the Noric equivalent of a laugh, quickly suppressed. The Empress's expression shifted, just slightly. "No," she said almost to herself. "I don't think you do." The rest of the morning was logistics. The Empress laid it out with the same directness she had promised. What Noric law required, what it permitted, what the House expected, what Cole would need to know. There would be a formal acknowledgement ceremony. There would be a period of time on Velorath during which the pregnancy was established in the House's official records. There would be decisions to be made about the child's status, education, inheritance. All of it complicated by the fact that nothing like this had ever happened before. Cole sent a second message to Fleet Command. He flagged it Priority 1 this time. Fleet Command responded in 4 hours, which was fast. Like the message was from Admiral Kate Brennan herself, which was very fast, and it said, "Archer, if this is accurate, you have just created the most complicated diplomatic situation in human space in 30 years. Confirm details. Immediately." He confirmed details. Kate Brennan's response was a long pause encoded in the timestamp gap between messages, and then, "Stay there. Do not make anything worse. We are sending a diplomatic attaché." He sent back, "Respectfully, I think the House outranks your attaché." She sent back, "I know. Send them anyway." He was sitting in the estate's outer garden when Vethara found him, some hours after the morning's conversation. The garden was not cultivated in a human sense. It was managed wildness. Plants that had been introduced and then left to negotiate with each other over decades. It smelled extraordinary. He was sitting on a low wall, watching something with 6 wings move between the flowers. She sat beside him, not close, but not far. "You did not run," she said. "Where would I go?" he said. It was not quite a question. Most beings, when presented with this information, experience a significant panic response. I panicked internally, he said. I'm good at that. She was quiet. The six-winged thing drifted past. I want to say something to you, she said, and I want it to be understood as information, not as obligation. All right. I do not expect anything from you that is not reasonable, she said. The law gives you standing. It does not give my house the right to consume your life. You are human. Your world and your fleet and your life are your own. Whatever arrangement works for you, and within what is required, I am willing to find it. She paused. I am not fragile. I do not need protecting from the difficulty of the situation. Cole thought about the woman he had found in the command chamber, half dead, gripping his wrist hard enough to shift bone, not letting go but also not asking for anything. Working through the pain without performing it. I know you're not, he said. She looked at him. The amber eyes, close up, had depth to them that was hard to look away from, like they were lit from somewhere further back than anatomy explained. Then we can figure the rest out, he said. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she looked back at the garden. My mother, she said after a while, Denim has asked me to tell you something. What? She has asked me to tell you that she finds you acceptable. She said it with a perfectly flat delivery. For a human. High praise, he said. From her, Bethara said. It is actually. The six-winged thing settled on a flower between them and considered them both with whatever it used for eyes. Cole thought, this is the strangest patrol rotation of my career. Then he thought, I am going to be a father. The second thought was larger than the first by a significant margin. He sat with it in the alien garden on the private world of one of the oldest families in the galaxy, while something with six wings watched him do it. Admiral Kate Brennan arrived on Velorath 7 days later, without the diplomatic attaché she had originally promised. Because the Noric embassy on the Galactic Council had contacted the fleet the same day, Cole sent his confirmation and the attaché's credentials had been reviewed and declined before the man had even packed a bag. Instead, Brennan came herself. She landed in a shuttle because the Noric were not offering docking access for any human vessel larger than a shuttle. And she walked from the landing pad to the estate's entrance hall with the stride of a woman who was going to have opinions about this situation and was managing them internally with tremendous effort. Cole met her in the hall. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, You look fine. I am fine. You don't find that concerning? That I'm fine? That you're fine, she said, given everything. She looked around the hall, the living walls, the amber light, at the architecture that had no seams because it had never been assembled, only grown. You've been here a week? It's a good place, he said, which was a massive understatement, but accurate. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Archer. Admiral. Walk me through it, she said, from the beginning, slowly. He did. She listened without interrupting, which was not her usual mode, which told him she was taking it seriously. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. The Noric Imperial House, she said. Yes, the actual Imperial House, not a regional governor, not a council affiliate, the house. Yes. She was quiet again. And they are not angry? No. They are not treating this as an incident requiring political remedy. No. They're treating it as there's not a perfect translation, but the closest is a fateful convergence. Something that was meant to happen. He paused. They have a complicated cosmology. I gathered that from the briefing. She looked at him. And the child. Healthy, he said. The physicians are monitoring everything. It's unprecedented in terms of the biology involved, but they seem confident. Are you? He thought about it honestly. I'm adjusting, he said. Archer, you were on a patrol route. I know. You were doing a 3-month rotation in the outer fringe, and then you were going on leave, and then you were going to visit your sister in New Columbus. I still might, he said. Eventually. Brennan sat down on the edge of a bench that the estate had grown specifically near the entrance, because apparently the Noric had noticed she looked like she needed to sit down and had adjusted accordingly. Which was the kind of thing that happened in this place that Cole had stopped being startled by. What does the house want from the fleet? She said. They want to formalize the relationship, he said. Not politically, personally. They want the fleet to acknowledge that I have obligations here that supersede my patrol assignment, and they want those obligations to be on record. And in return? In return, Cole said, the Noric Imperial House will open 6 new trade corridors into deep Noric space that have been closed to human vessels for 200 years. Brennan looked at him. Also, he said, they've offered to share their biological shipbuilding technology with the fleet. Not all of it, but enough. She stared at him. I didn't negotiate it, he said. The Empress made the offer this morning. I think she wanted to make sure the fleet had a reason to view this situation positively. Positively, Brennan repeated. Archer, that is, those 2 things alone would shift the entire balance of the outer fringe. The Council has been trying to open those corridors for 60 years. I know. You accidentally did more for human-Noric relations than the entire diplomatic corps has managed in a decade. I answered a distress beacon, he said. Stop saying that like it's an excuse, she said. But there was something in her voice now that was not entirely exasperated. She looked at him for a long moment. What do you need from the fleet? Reassignment, he said. Semi-permanent posting to Noric space. Velarath specifically, with rotation allowances when I need to be elsewhere. And I need my leave extended. How long? He thought about the pregnancy timeline the Noric physicians had given him, about how different it was from human timelines, about everything he did not know yet and was going to need to learn. A year, he said. Minimum. Brennan nodded slowly. I'll make the calls. She stood up. The house is willing to meet with me today? The Empress has been waiting since you landed, Cole said. She knew you were coming before I told her. I'm not entirely sure how. I'm going to ask her. She'll either answer you directly or she'll redirect with a question that makes you forget you asked, Cole said. She's very good at both. Brennan almost smiled. She sounds like she runs a tight house. The tightest, he said. Vethara appeared at the inner hall doorway at that moment. She had a way of appearing at moments that was probably not coincidental. And she looked at Brennan with the same assessment Cole had received on that first day. Brennan looked back with the equally direct gaze of someone who had been an admiral for 12 years and was not easily moved. They took each other's measure for approximately 4 seconds. Admiral Brennan, Vethara said, in Galactic Standard, her voice even. I am Vethara. You are here because of me. I thought it correct to greet you myself. I appreciate that, Brennan said. Are you well? It was a genuine question, not a diplomatic formula, and something in Vethara's expression registered that. I am, she said. Better than I was. A pause. Your officer is very difficult to shake. I've noticed, Brennan said. It is a quality worth keeping. The meeting with the Empress lasted 4 hours. Cole was not in most of it. The Empress had her own way of conducting formal discussions that apparently worked better without additional parties present. But he caught pieces of it from the adjacent garden, where he had taken to sitting in the afternoons. Two voices, occasionally, through the living walls, one with the flat vowels of the Admiral's northern accent, one with the precision of someone speaking a second language, as well as their first. At one point, he heard Brennan laugh. He had not heard Brennan laugh in his 5 years under her command, and when Brennan came to find him afterward, her expression was complicated in a way he found hard to read. "She offered me tea," Brennan said. "That means something," Cole said. "So I gathered, given the way the room reacted." She sat beside him on the low wall where he and Vithara had sat, watching the six-winged thing a week ago. She asked me 3 questions about human childhood development that I did not expect. "She's researching," Cole said. "For the child." Brennan looked at him sideways. "You're very calm about this." "It's happening whether I'm calm or not," he said. "Calm is more useful." She was quiet for a moment. "The Empress also asked me," she said carefully, "about your personal situation, your history, your character." She paused. She was thorough. And I told her the truth," Brennan said. "Some 4 reprimands, 9 commendations, a card game that ended a standoff. The fact that you have never, in 5 years, left a person behind when you had any choice in the matter." Cole looked at the garden. "She said," Brennan continued, and I'm translating from Galactic Standard, so bear with me. She said that a house endures not through blood alone, but through the character of those who carry its future forward. A pause. "I think that was about you." "I think so too," he said. Brennan stood. "Your reassignment will be official in 72 hours. I'm telling the Council it's a diplomatic liaison posting, which is technically accurate." She looked at him. "Archer." "Admiral." "You did good," she said. "On the distress beacon and everything after." She went back inside. Cole sat in the garden until the light on Velorath shifted from gold to the long amber of late afternoon, which lasted longer than human late afternoons did because Velorath's days ran to 31 hours and the evening stretched and stretched. Something moved in the deep foliage at the garden's edge. Something larger than the 6-winged creature. Something with a slow, patient gait that did not mind being watched. Vithara appeared beside him. She did not announce herself. She never announced herself. They sat together in the amber light and watched the large, slow creature move through the garden, and neither of them said anything for a long time, and the silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was not a small thing, Cole thought. An uncomfortable silence with a person you barely know, in a place you have never been, surrounded by everything unfamiliar. That was one thing. This was different. This was the particular silence of 2 people who have already been through something together and have nothing left to perform for each other. "The Admiral is interesting," Vithara said eventually. "She is," he said. "She cares about you," Vithara said. "Not as a military asset, as a person." "I know," he said. "That is also worth keeping," she said. The large creature in the garden paused, turned its head toward them with an unhurried curiosity, and then moved on into the deeper growth. Tomorrow, there would be more logistics. There would be the formal acknowledgement ceremony with its Noric protocols he had been studying all week. There would be communications with his sister, who was going to have an extraordinary number of questions. And there would be decisions he could not anticipate yet, because the situation was still reshaping itself around him, and he was still learning its edges. Tonight there was the amber light, and the garden, and the silence that was not uncomfortable. He stayed in it. The acknowledgement ceremony was supposed to take 2 hours. It took 4.5 because the High Archivist of the Noric Imperial House had not performed this particular ceremony in her 112 years of service, and she was determined to do it correctly. Which meant she consulted 4 different historical records during the proceedings and twice stopped everything to confer with the Empress in rapid Noric that the translation matrix struggled to keep pace with. Cole stood in the center of the formal chamber, the same one he had walked the length of alone, on what felt like a year ago but was not yet 3 weeks. And he was still, and he was patient, and he did not shift his weight or check his comm unit or let his eyes drift to the gallery where Admiral Brennan sat with a small Noric protocol officer who was translating quietly into her ear. Bethara stood to his right. She was in formal wear again, deep colors and gold, her white hair arranged with the same careful effort as the morning after she had come to his quarters on the ship. She had told him that morning that the ceremony would require him to make 4 statements of formal acknowledgement in Noric, which she had been teaching him for 2 weeks, and that his pronunciation would be assessed and noted for the historical record. And she was confident he would manage adequately. He had practiced until adequately became something better, and when the moment came, he said the 4 statements in Noric. Not perfectly. 2 of the tonal shifts were still beyond him, but clearly and with full intention, and when he finished, the assembled court was very still in the way. Courts are still when something unexpected has happened in the right direction. The High Archivist looked at him over the records she was holding. "Adequate," she said, in Galactic Standard, with the specific emphasis of someone whose scale begins at adequate and goes nowhere near it on the lower end. Bethara, beside him, made the suppressed sound. The Empress, watching from the platform, allowed a small movement at the corner of her mouth. After the ceremony, there was a formal gathering. Hundreds of Noric, the closest thing to a party that the house's culture produced, which meant food and structured conversation and a particular kind of music that came from instruments grown directly from the same biological material as everything else in this place. The sound it made was extraordinary. It moved through the chest rather than the ears, or through both simultaneously. Cole spent the first hour being introduced to more Noric than he could track, all of them assessing him with the same direct amber-eyed attention, none of them hostile. The house had apparently decided that accepting the situation was the appropriate response, and they had committed to it fully, which was the Noric way. Once a position was taken, it was taken. A young Noric male, young being relative, he was probably 100 years old in human terms, which put him somewhere around 25 in terms of life stage, stopped him near the food tables and said, in careful Galactic Standard, "You are the one who carried her out." "Yes," Cole said. "I am her cousin," he said. "She is my favorite person in this house." He looked at Cole with the full weight of that statement sitting in his eyes. "I want you to know that I am watching." "That's fair," Cole said. The cousin assessed him for another moment. Then he nodded once, selected something from the food table, and walked away. Bethara appeared at Cole's shoulder. "He likes you," she said. "He told me he's watching me." "For him, that is the same thing," she said. Late in the evening, after the formal gathering had shifted into something smaller and less structured, the Empress found Cole near the outer terrace. She did not summon him. She walked to where he was standing and stood beside him, the way Bethara had stood beside him in the garden, looking out at the Velorath night, which was spectacular in the way only a world without light pollution and with 3 moons could be spectacular. "You have been introduced to everyone of consequence in this house today," she said. "I think so," he said. "How do you find them?" "Honest," he said. "Direct. They do not pretend to feel things they do not feel. No, she said. We do not. She was quiet for a moment. My daughter has told me that you said you are adjusting. I am, he said. And when you are finished adjusting? He thought about it. Then I'll be adjusted, he said. And we'll figure out the next thing. The Empress looked at the 3 moons. I am going to tell you something that I have not told my daughter yet, she said, because I wanted to tell you first. He waited. When the physicians completed their full assessment last week, she said, they found something they did not expect. She paused. There are 2 children. The terrace railing under his hand was biological material, and it registered his grip the way the rest of this place registered everything. It adjusted slightly, supporting the pressure. 2, he said. Twins, she said. The Noric word for it is slightly different. It carries a specific ceremonial weight, but the meaning is equivalent. She looked at him. They are both healthy. The physicians are very confident. Cole looked at the 3 moons. 2. Does Vethara know yet? He said. I will tell her tonight, the Empress said. I wanted you to have a moment to receive it first. He understood that. It was a courtesy. The specific Noric kind that was not soft, but was exact. That understood what a person needed and provided it without making it a performance. Thank you, he said. She nodded. They stood together in the Velorath night for a moment longer. I want to say something to you, the Empress said then, and her voice shifted slightly, not softer exactly, but differently weighted. When I looked at you on that first comm channel, I saw a human soldier who had saved my daughter's life. That was enough to earn gratitude. It was not enough to earn trust. I understand that, he said. Trust is earned over time, she said. You are not there yet. I do not expect you to be. But I want you to know that I'm watching you without the intention of finding you lacking. She paused. I am watching you because I find you worth watching. From an Empress, he understood from 3 weeks of context. That was extraordinary. I will try to be worth it, he said. I know you will, she said. It was not encouragement. It was a statement of expectation, which was harder to carry and more valuable to receive. She went back inside. He stood on the terrace until Vethara found him, which was 20 minutes later. She stood beside him. He looked at her, and she looked at him. And something passed between them that the translation matrix would not have caught because it did not travel through language. She told you, Vethara said. She told you too, he said. A few minutes ago. She was quiet. 2. 2, he said. The moons moved their slow arc across the Velorath sky. I want to say something, he said. And I want you to hear it as information and not as obligation, the way you said that to me. She turned to look at him. I don't know how this works yet, he said. The logistics of it, what it looks like long term, how we navigate all the things that are different between us. I don't know most of it. He looked at her. But I am not going anywhere. Not because the law requires it, and not because the fleet told me to stay. Because I was in that debris field 11 minutes into a distress beacon, and I found something worth staying for. And the 2 of us are going to figure the rest out. Vethara held his gaze for a long time. That, she said, is the least complicated thing anyone has ever said to me. Good, he said, and she looked back at the moons. After a moment, she said, My cousin told me he is watching you. He did mention that, Cole said. He also told me, she said with the perfectly flat delivery she had deployed once before, That you answered him correctly, and that he approves. High praise, Cole said. From him, she said. It actually is. Somewhere in the estate behind them, the music was still playing, the kind that moved through the chest rather than the ears. The Velaroth night stretched long around them. 3 moons, 2 children, 1 human who had punched through a debris field because a beacon was screaming, and it was the right thing to do. He had gone out on patrol. He had not come back the same way. He could not bring himself to regret a single moment of it, which he suspected said something about him that even 4 reprimands and 9 commendations had not fully measured. He stood on the terrace in the amber dark of a world he had not known existed 3 weeks ago, and he thought, all right, whatever comes next, all right.